Marylaure. So it's nice to see that you have more essays. Wonderful. Let's see what you have done here in this set. The first one is about the advantages and disadvantages of travel. So let's see what you wrote here. In the last few decades, traveling has become the norm and has stopped being reserved for the richest people. As with any situation, this should be singular after any, it has created opportunities as well as revealed some issues which we will discuss. Okay, I like this. I like this a lot. Although you've said it created opportunities and some issues. You're not really giving me the feel that we're talking about advantages and disadvantages here. Do make it clearer, okay? And it's not too hard to do. I mean, yeah, benefits and drawbacks, okay, and disadvantages. You could have just used an expression like pros and cons, okay? So you could have said, as with any situation, it has created pros, such as new opportunities, as well as cons in the, what's the word I want? As well as cons in the form of some issues we will discuss. Something along those lines. But just do express that you understand that we're supposed to be talking about pros, about cons, benefits, drawbacks, advantages, disadvantages. Just some sort of way of expressing that a little more clearly. All right? So let's move on. The main advantage of people traveling has been the development of the tourist and aviation industries. Many jobs would not exist if the world population did not travel as much. Many countries in the developing world, such as Vietnam and Somalia, have also relied on tourism to develop their economy. This in turn, careful, that should be no ed, has provided, not provided, this in turn has provided a better life for the whole population with infrastructure development. Being able to use better developed road and transport networks, no comma, has also helped many people to find employment which they did not have access to close to home. Others wanting to live in houses which they cannot afford in the cities choose to commute to the city and live in the suburbs or even the country where houses are more affordable. All right, I don't know where you're going with this. I think that what you're telling me is that travel has led to better infrastructure. Yes? And this has allowed people to, I guess, move around their country more easily. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's a great idea, and I think that, you know, this is a nice line of thought, and I like it. I kind of feel like you really run this risk of going off topic. That's honestly how I kind of feel. So here, yeah, I thought it was good. You talked about, let's see, you talked about the development of the tourist and aviation industries. Okay, so let's see. Many jobs would not exist if people did not travel as much. Okay, and then you talked about Vietnam and Somalia. Fine. Okay, and fine. Then you started talking about infrastructure development. I just kind of feel like when you got here, you started going off topic. Like, let's talk about why travel is good, okay? And not, you know, what does travel mean for like the rest of society. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm making sense. I just kind of feel like you started getting off topic. So, for example, you mentioned that they've relied on tourism to develop their economy. Okay, show me how. Tell me how. So, you know, that they have invested, the country has invested in hotels, the country has, you know, has a thriving hospitality industry with restaurants and bars and, you know, what have you, and retail now, which has sprung up everywhere. And so many more people have jobs. So if you had talked about that, then yes, I would have felt good about that. But instead, you then started talking about this infrastructure, which I love. I really do. But I just kind of feel like when you started talking about homes in the suburbs and stuff, I really felt like you were kind of getting off topic. Okay, if you wanted to talk about infrastructure and how that that investment in infrastructure is somehow related to travel, you could have talked about a better road network, a better phone network, maybe better hospitals, to tend to tourists and so forth. Maybe this kind of line of thinking, just bringing it back to travel more, would have been a better idea, okay? Because I kind of, like, when I was reading this, I was like, all right, where are we going with this? So let's move on. However, a mobile population, what's this? Has also a major downside. Careful. However, a mobile population also has a major downside, as we have seen with the pandemic we are now experiencing. The main issue being, this really should have been a comma and then a lowercase the. The main issue being the ease with which a virus can travel from one country, state, city to another. All right, so talk about this a little more. Give me a little more information here, okay? A lesser but increasing problem is the traffic mobility. I see. Okay, a lesser but increasing problem is the traffic mobility creates. Therefore, there are more traffic jams during peak hours, which decreases quality of life, not life quality. Quality of life by increasing the level of stress experienced. The fact that people travel more for leisure and work has also been detrimental for the environment, as it results in an increase of fuel emissions from planes and cars. Okay, so you talked about the pandemic, you talked about traffic, you talked about the environment. Okay. Honestly, Marylaure, I would have preferred if you had just stuck to 2 ideas, but just developed them a little more fully. Because you have 3 ideas, and you just kind of have this very sort of light on the surface discussion of them and description. I would have preferred just picking which 2 you thought were the strongest, and then just dealing with those, but dealing with them a little more in depth, okay? Because it really feels like your analysis, like for example here with the fuel emission, it feels very superficial. It feels very on the surface. So if you wanted to talk about that, you should have said more, okay? Give me some sort of fact about planes, that, planes are held responsible for about 20% of the global emissions in in 2018. Okay, so something like that, but give me a little additional information. Okay, so the main takeaway here is all of this is great. I really liked a lot of it, but stick to a couple of ideas. You definitely need more than one. There's no question about that, because it says disadvantages, plural. So that was good, but I would have preferred a deeper analysis of the ones that you chose. So 2 would have been fine. In summary, domestic and international mobility proves to be a double-edged sword, depending on the aspects we could focus on. All right, that's good. It's a little brief. I think you might have been able to say more. But it essentially gets the job done. What else could you have done? Maybe had another sentence. In summary, domestic and international mobility proves to be a double-edged sword. Full stop. Countries can be developed as a result of travel, yet the environment is harmed as a result. All right, something like that would have been nice. Just an extra sentence there. You see, the thing is, I'm never really a huge fan of these 1-sentence paragraphs, because essentially a sentence does not make a paragraph. Officially, at least back when I was in school, you needed around 6 sentences for a paragraph. Obviously, in the land of IELTS, that's not going to happen. Okay. But 1 sentence does feel a little short for its own paragraph. All right, no more time spent on that. Let's move on, because you also have this movie genre task 1 here. Let's take a look at this. 180 words, you say. Let's see what you wrote. The bar chart represents what kinds of movies are favored by males. Well, I don't know why there's not an S here. Males and females around the world. Overall, action, comedy, drama, and romance are the favorite categories, although they are represented in different proportions according to the gender of the audience. All right, although cannot be used like this. When you use although, you essentially need 2 clauses, or to make it more simple, two sentences, and you join those 2 sentences with the although. The although can come at the beginning, it can come in the middle, but it definitely is essentially joining two sentences. So what does that mean? It means that you should have joined these two sentences with that although. Now, I do have a comment, or I don't know if it's a comment, but a question mark about your comment here. Action, comedy, drama, and romance are the favorite categories. Action, comma, drama. Let's see. Action, comedy, drama, and romance. All right. I understand why you say that. I don't really agree with saying this because essentially you only had 6 categories. And I feel that your overview isn't really giving us an accurate depiction of what's happening in this chart, okay? I think far more appropriate and accurate would have been overall comedy was the favorite category, but there were considerable differences between male and female preferences. Done. That would have been more accurate. All right, here you essentially listed 4 out of the 6, so it doesn't really feel like an overview, does it? So point out comedy and then maybe say that you could have said that comedy was the favorite category among both genders, yet elsewhere their preferences varied. That would have been lovely. Okay, let's move on. Now, remember the difference between few and a few. All right, a few means some, whereas few means almost none, 0. That's not what you mean. You do mean here a few. So let's try it. A few categories have similar scores between males and females, or females and males, with a difference of under 11 between sexes, namely animation, comedy, and horror. Comedy is the overall favorite genre among male and female alike, with a score of 145 and 137 respectively. Horror movies come second, although with a much lower score of 73 for men and 64 for women. Finally, animation comes third with 63 for men, plural men, and 54 for women. Okay. Other categories show a bigger discrepancy between movies enjoyed by a male or female audience. The biggest difference appears with romantic movies, which are favored by 116 females and only 31 males. Action movies show a difference between the sexes, with 137 males preferring this genre as opposed to 82 females. The difference is also noticeable for drama, with 23 more females enjoying this genre than males. Okay, this is a really interesting way of separating your paragraphs. I haven't seen it done like this before. I can't say that I didn't like it. I did. I thought it was interesting. Let's see. Like I said, I've seen it done differently. There are a lot of different ways you could do this. One way to do it is to talk about the men and their preferences in one paragraph, the women and their preferences in another paragraph. Another thing is to talk about comedy, action, and romance, romantic movies in one paragraph, and then kind of lump these other 3 together in a separate paragraph. I thought what you did was interesting. I had a question mark in my head. Now obviously we're talking about details here, right? You realize that. So here, for example, you decided to talk about romantic movies. I thought action movies should have come first because it had that higher score. It's a detail. Honestly, really, you can see that. But yeah, I thought this was an interesting decision. And I think it's fine, you know. I thought it was good. So you talked about the ones that were more in common first, and then you talked about the ones where the big discrepancies. I thought that was an interesting way to do it, and I liked it. So good job. Now go ahead, Marylaure, correct these, and let's see more work from you. I thought you did a nice job today. Okay, good luck.